Grindle, quien es la productora de la película, junto con John Walker, y el director de la película, Brother. Okay, entonces, bienvenidos. Pueden hacer su pregunta en inglés o en español. Aquí está Gaby para que los apoye. Una pregunta por medio, ya saben, no preguntas personales y de por qué hace 14 años y hoy se volvió a hacer, ¿no? O sea, ¿no? De logística, no cuestiones amadas.
Thank you.
Ok, empezamos, por favor.
Bueno, voy a hablar en español. Primero, bienvenidos y gracias por la película que nos dieron, es bastante entretenida.
Welcome. Thank you for the film. It's very entertaining.
Okay.
Mi nombre es Vicente Cabrera y soy de Los Increíbles. El concepto de Los Increíbles es el núcleo familiar de un grupo de superhéroes. De alguna forma, cuando vimos la primera película pensamos en The Fantastic Four.
Okay, this idea of this film is about a family with superpowers, superheroes, right? The nuclear they belong to. And at first, you see them and you think of the Fantastic Four.
I don't.
Yeah, we
because
don't.
There are only two members that are of blood relatives, and I guess there sort of is in Fantastic Four. I guess, yeah.
Entonces, mi
But-
pregunta,
There are different challenges.
This is 5, so
Yeah.
Frozone 6.
The Frozen 6.
Right.
Edna's 7.
No,
They're not having problems at school.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes this a little different is that I chose the powers based on where they were in their lives. Men are expected to be, fathers are expected to be strong, so I made Mr. Incredible very strong. Mothers are pulled in 20 different directions at once, so I had her be elastic. Teenagers are defensive and insecure, so I made her have invisibility and force fields. 10-year-old boys are energy balls who have to open every door and press every button now. And babies are unknowns. They may have all the powers, they may have none of the powers. So babies are all about potential. And that's why I had Jack. And Sam Jackson is just cool, so you got to make him have ice powers. But in any way, that to me is the strength of this concept, and powers were not just chosen for power's sake.
Okay. Pasamos, por favor.
Ok. En esta película se ve mucho lo que es la evolución en cuestión a los personajes, pero me gustaría saber...
Que te des
No
escuchar,
Dutch.
que te
No
des
Dutch.
escuchar.
No Dutch.
Lift that side.
He hates Dutch. Hates Dutch.
Always director. Director.
Me gustaría saber en qué época está basada la historia, porque se nota mucho lo que es la evolución entre lo que es la lucha entre los géneros, lo que es el empoderamiento de la mujer.
What, can you tell
I think
us
you need a
about
few
the-
more devices.
Que si me quieres dar otro
Yeah.
Okay. I think sometimes it doesn't get any better here, but it's okay. Okay, about the time period. Which is the time period you would say the film is set in? Because we see there's an evolution, like
Sure.
in the roles, the feminine roles and the empowerment. So, what do you think is the time frame or the?
Well, in terms of their family roles, there is no time. Family is family. But in terms of the physical look of the film, it's vaguely the late 50s, early 60s, but it's sort of an alternate reality that takes place in the early 60s. Some technology is very advanced, and some technology is not. We don't have cell phones in the movie, for example, when they actually would have come in very handy for this film with a villain named Screenslaver. But I wanted to keep them out of the movie because I didn't want to have a bunch of scenes of people scrolling their little mobile devices. So it's kind of an alternate version of the 60s. But it's technologically occasionally advanced.
But in terms of the role of women, I think it's been consistent in both movies. Because at the beginning of the first movie, Elastigirl had a career before she settled down to have kids. And she
liked it.
She liked it and she was good at it.
Yes, and so events that are in the news now, it's nice for the film to come out now and have it seem like it's contemporary. But I had this idea more than a decade ago. So to me, it's just a continued extension of the characters that we saw in the first film.
So, how did you realize that you wanted to change the focus of the movie? Because if Mr. Incredible has his own scenes and his own development in the movie, when did you decide that you wanted a little more spotlight for Elastigirl and a little more empowerment for?
I wouldn't say it's more spotlight. I would say it's a different spotlight. I think the spotlight is also on Bob trying to cope with just everyday fatherhood, and the fact that the challenges of it, practically bring him to his knees, is kind of something the film was interested in playing with. I know that I underestimated what it would take to be a father. When I first had kids, I thought, they're kind of blobs. They don't have anything specific, and then they get more personality and interesting as life goes on. And the second they're born, they have a distinct personality, and that's something that was just news to me. Yeah, you gotta lift that side. This side right there. Hold that side up. Right, great, beautiful. No, you're tilting again. You're tilting. All right, there you go. All right. Yeah, it's driving me crazy.
Don't touch it. Don't touch cameras.
And just to say about parenting, I mean, just to reiterate what you're saying, everybody thinks that when they have a little baby, they'll say it's going to be easy, and then at first, it's hard at the beginning, and they say, "Oh, will it get easier?"
No, it's not that hard at the beginning. Their poops don't even smell.
But you don't sleep.
Yeah,
You don't sleep. That's fair.
If you can't figure out what in the world they want.
That part's hard, and then they start walking, and that's hard, and people say, "Oh,
that's really hard when they start moving around."
But even I have like 20-year-old kids. It's still hard. It's just different hard.
Right.
So I think that's what the story's about.
My daughter has a 1-year-old, and she, about 6 months into her childhood, she came to me and just almost in tears, going, "Dad, why didn't you tell me it was so hard?" I said, "Now I have a movie for you."
Pasamos un poco.
I'll try tonight to take my inner kids to make the question, but I really love the movie.
Oh, great. You've seen it, right?
Yeah, of course. Where am I? My question is, I'm not going to do 14-year question, but
okay. Because I've given that answer 400,000 times.
Yeah.
Just refer to one of the other articles.
And there's no good answer.
There's no good answer.
How do you balance superhero cliches, like the stairs, like, oh, there's a bad thing, and they're all staring, and how do you balance those cliches with the new
Everyday life stuff?
Yeah,
We have the answer
like
for you.
Yeah, that has always been part of the concept of the film. One of the rules that I said to the crew on the first film is, I said, this is about the mundane and the fantastic. And you don't do something mundane very long without having something fantastic happen. And you don't do something fantastic very long without having something mundane happen. When I was first pitching the film, and I wanted John to come up, because we worked together on Iron Giant, and I had a good time with him, and I wanted him to come up with me to Pixar and produce Incredibles, is I pitched him. Part of my pitch was having Helen sneaking into the secret base, and she moves past a reflective surface, and she sees that her butt is a little bigger than it was the last time she put on the outfit. She kind of looks at it and goes like this. Now they're in the middle of this really cool secret base, and she is an amazing superhero, and she can't help but stop and go, I've put on a few pounds.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the film lives. And I think that's part of what makes us unique.
Yeah. I remember from that pitch too, he goes, "I got this great title, but I don't know if I want to tell you because I don't want to say it out loud, so you steal it before we can make it. It's called The Incredibles. It's about a family." I went, "That's a really good title, man." That's a good
So the
title.
family is called The Incredibles? I said, no, they're called the Pars.
But,
Yeah.
but they are incredible. Well, that's a good title. Titles are hard.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Felicidades por la película. Quisiera la opinión de los tres respecto a qué piensan o qué le tienen que decir a aquellos directores que en un sector más de autor están en contra del cine de superhéroes.
Okay, congratulations for the film. And my question is, do you have something to tell the author type of filmmakers, those who are like against these films of superheroes?
Oh, against superheroes?
Yeah, like what they call the author type of filmmaking is how they call it.
Oh, auteur.
Auteur.
The auteur.
Yes.
Hey, this guy's an auteur. Don't let him fool you.
Yes.
Don't let him fool you.
I don't know. I think that Hollywood has had a long tradition. If something is popular, they do it to death. That's been around as long as there's been movies. If we could magically go to 1958 right now and turn on the TV, chances are about 9 out of 10 that we would hit a Western. So Hollywood has done that forever, and that's a drag. However, that doesn't mean that Westerns can't be cool. And, John Ford made The Searchers, which was a great Western, one of the best, and made it right in the middle of when there were way too many Westerns going on. By that same token, I think that there are too many superhero films now, but there are also some great films that are superhero films. Just this last year, James Mangold did Logan, which was very adventurous and smart and unexpected take on the Wolverine character, and a great way to end that character's incarnation with Hugh Jackman. Chris Nolan's Dark Knight film is a fantastic movie, and will be good 100 years from now. And no one's going to improve on that Joker. That is the best Joker that's ever been done. And we had Black Panther that came out a few months ago that was also really worthwhile. So there are good superhero movies and bad superhero movies, and I hope that while I hope that the formulaic filmmaking we've had enough of that. I think we need to get back to something like the 70s where a lot more filmmakers were getting to do their personal visions. I don't think that because a film is about superheroes, it's necessarily bad. We're making one now, and we had a great time doing it.
El Quintero de Producción, felicidades también. Esta pregunta tiene que ver un poquito con el año en que están viendo la película. Normalmente en Pixar se hacen muchos easter eggs hacia otras películas de Pixar. Sin embargo, en esta particularmente hay una referencia muy directa a otra franquicia que en este caso es Johnny Quest. ¿Por qué Johnny Quest? ¿Quién es el que tiene esa afición por Johnny Quest y por qué incluirlo, ¿no?
I have no idea what you're saying,
Johnny Quest.
but I'm totally interested. Yeah.
I think you're going to like this one.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, this is about the time where the film is set.
Yes.
Because I
1964,
know in all
Johnny
the
Quest.
1964.
Right.
I've seen a lot of Pixar movies, and I know there are a lot of Easter eggs, but in this one we have a direct type of relationship with Johnny Quest.
Johnny Quest.
I want to know who was this idea of? Who was
I
Johnny
love
Quest?
Johnny Quest.
Maybe
I will
it
not
is.
share this with anyone. It's me, and I'm very proud to be representing for Johnny Quest.
That's right.
Yes.
It's a different kind of superhero, right?
Well, it is. People ask why there's a spy movie vibe in The Incredibles. And I think it's when I was little, while I was interested in comic book superheroes like most boys are, I guess, I was not a fanatic about it. And the superheroes that were in movies and television were kind of cheesy and not very well done. I liked the Superman that was reruns, the black and white Supermans, but he was kind of overweight and a little cheesy, and he bounced off a springboard, and then he's on the wires, and they were kind of cheesy. What I related to at the time that was like superheroes with villains and crazy plots and gadgets were James Bond movies, Mission Impossible, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Secret Agent Man, and Johnny Quest. And Johnny Quest was probably my favorite show that existed. When I saw the opening titles for it, I almost burst into flames because I couldn't believe that one show had, oh my God, there's pterodactyls and rifles and lizard men and lasers and monsters and spaceships and hydrofoils and all of this is in one show. I can't believe it, you know. And so the opening titles for Johnny Quest.
And Haji and a dog.
Yeah, he has a best friend who can levitate people and you know, a bodyguard who can kick people's ass. And when people die, they don't never come back. And oh, it's so great. And so anytime I start to get disconnected, if the business part or the fact that we have to hit a certain amount of numbers at the studio, if I want to reconnect with the young boy inside me, all I have to do is look at the opening titles for Johnny Quest and go, oh yeah! You know, so I love Johnny Quest. I was very happy that we were able to get a little salute in this film. Uh-huh.
I am Liz Hill.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I love the movie. My question is, what is more difficult to do? Actions still like in Mission or Tomorrowland or in Incredibles?
You mean the action scenes in both of those?
Yes.
They are equally challenging in different ways. With animation, you are trying to backwards engineer spontaneity when things don't go right. And in live action films, you're trying to set it up so that you can get something insane on the first try. And sometimes you succeed and many times you don't. And you know, we had a shot in Mission Impossible that I wanted that was an overhead shot of Tom running and being chased right before the sandstorm hits. And we had to shoot it from a helicopter, and the winds were bad on the day that we shot it. And the camera kept drifting off what I needed it to be because I wanted to show the shadow of the sandstorm coming. And so we did the shot, money was spent, quite a lot of money was spent, and it wasn't right. And they were trying to say, can you live with it? And I was like, I can't live with it! We have to do it again. And so we got the helicopter again. And fortunately, the second time it worked. And we got the shot the way I imagined it. Well, that's more what live action is at. You're kind of rolling the dice and hoping that it works. And in animation, you're taking these small steps to that ultimate one. And if you do it wrong, it looks like it was planned. And if you do it right, it looks like it just happened naturally. And that's actually really hard to do in animation. And that part is easy to do in live action. But it's hard to get all the pieces together in live action. So it's the same challenge as how do you keep the audience constantly knowing where they are, but at a really rapid speed. I got really angry when I saw The Incredibles on TV and they had sped it up 10% in order to get more commercials in. Because I had timed that movie, the editor, Steve Schaefer, and I, had timed it so that you could not move one frame faster without you losing the ability to understand what was going on. I mean, sometimes I had shots that were 4 or 5 frames long, which are subliminal almost. And we worked really hard at that. And once you speed it up, man, it becomes incomprehensible. So I'm trying to get them to agree not to speed up that movie or this one, because we've pushed it as much as we can. And anymore, if it moves any faster, it starts to lose impact rather than gaining impact.
You know, but action scenes in live action are oddly enough planned and very similar to the way we do it in animation.
Pre-planned.
They're heavily storyboarded. They're pre-viz because they're going to be very expensive and they're going to be hard to do. So
Right.
you got to know exactly what you're going to do. So those actually, from a process and a production standpoint, they're very similar because we do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But take for instance, if we flip a car in live action or in animation, we flip it a number of times, we look at it, we go, yeah, that's good, maybe we should flip a little bit more here, maybe a little stalls in the air and somebody types it in, okay, that's what it's like. When you do it for live action, you do tests on a car that you don't care about, and hey man, look at the test, man, this car just spun, it's perfect, great, everybody, it's gonna work, it's gonna work, it's gonna work. You get out there and the car goes, and just kind of blows, and now you can't use the car because it's crumpled, but you can't use the shot
and
either.
the stunt guy's going, yeah, I can do it again, I can do it again. You go, no.
Yeah.
You're not gonna do that.
Yeah, but we did do it again, and we had to flip the car twice. And the second flip is the one that's in the movie, the one where he just misses it, you know.
And the dirty secret of live action is that an awful lot of their action sequences are animated, right?
Not on mission.
Not on mission. You know,
Not on mission.
There's an awful lot. There's an awful lot of action sequence out there that have nothing to do with live action filmmaking. It's all animation. You know?
Right, and a lot of it is actually not very good animation.
Not very good.
And one of the things that I met with animators on the first Incredibles was, we have to sell that this is real. Otherwise, people aren't going to. Of course, it's not real. They don't look real, but we have to observe real physics enough to convince people that they can get involved in it. And we showed them a lot of footage of a lot of examples of films that didn't look convincing. I remember we had a Jet Li film called The One, and there was one moment where he picked up two motorcycles and smashed them together, and it didn't look cool, it just looked fake, because there was no weight to them. They looked like helium balloons, and it wasn't impressive, it just was cheesy. And the thing is there are reasons why, you know, your body has to be set a certain way. And there was another movie called Hancock, where Will Smith gets hit by a truck or something, and he doesn't move an inch. Now, how much does Hancock weigh? Does he weigh more than the semi that's hitting him? Because if he does, then he would break through every floor that he walked through. And so I don't believe that. That's bad special effects. And I would never put that in The Incredibles. When we had Bob get hit by a train in The Incredibles, he doesn't stop the train. He braces himself. It's going to hurt, and it hits him, and it hurts, and you see his feet breaking through a bunch of wooden ties, and he can slow it down. And the fact that he doesn't die is amazing. But does it come without pain? No, it hurts like hell. And he doesn't stop the train completely. He slows it down, which makes it more amazing. So because we're in animation and animated characters do not observe jeopardy. The coyote can fall off the cliff and just dust himself off. We have to go even harder to make people worry about the characters. And so that making convincing animation, not necessarily real, convincing, is really important to us.
Good question.
Super long answer to a simple question. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations for the movie. Hay tres elementos importantes para Los Increíbles. Uno de ellos es los par, el arte de contar historias y la animación. ¿Cómo se involucran estos tres elementos en esta historia de Los Increíbles 2?
Okay, we have three areas in an important movie to be successful. We have, in this particular case,
Only three?
in this
Great.
picture, we
Okay.
have the power family,
Okay.
we have the way of telling the story, and we have animation. How do you guys handle it to like blend everything together to get this awesome result?
I don't think you can't not blend it together, right? I mean, you know, we aren't good if we don't animate those characters. They don't exist. So I mean, it's a chicken and egg.
It's a story. It's again a question of story.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, animation, the reason for doing, when I first started in animation, there was an old timer that said to me, and not the great old timers, one kind of a hack old timer, said to me, if you can do it in live action, you don't do it in animation. And if you, and I felt like, you're just making yourself obsolete, because and live action is capable of doing more and more every year. And if the only reason to do something is because it can't be done in live action, then we're going to be all out of business in 5-10 years. And what have we had? We've had E.T., which has an alien that moves around and talks. We've had The Matrix, which deals with time and space in a really interesting way. The reason to do animation has never been just because live action can't do it. It's to capture the essence of a moment. When a good caricaturist draws the likeness of a person or a famous person, it often looks more like the person than the person does. And that's because they found what's distinctive about that character or that person. They lock in on that and they lose everything that's not specific to that person. So it makes it a more intense version of that person. And the same can be true for how people move. You see a good mime that can mimic people's walks because everybody has an individual walk. A good mime can imitate anybody's walks, and they're finding what's distinctive in the walk and they're turning up the volume on it. And so animation is that essence, finding the essence of something in both the style of the character, how the character looks standing still, and how it moves too. And those two things combined are really powerful. And that will make animation always relevant and always able to do any story in a very unique way.
Thank you.
Felicidades, veo por cómo se transmite el amor y la pasión en esta película. Me gustaría, Nicole, tú que tienes una carrera impresionante de efectos especiales, ¿qué te llevó a ser productora de esta cinta de Los Increíbles? Dime tu transición de este efecto.
Okay, first of all, congratulations. I can actually feel how you convey this love of passion for the film. And this question is for Nicole. I know you have a great career in special effects. I'd like to know, why did you decide to produce this film, and what can you tell us about this type of transition?
Wow. Well, I guess the background in special effects started a long time ago. I believe you're referring to my work in Industrial Light and Magic, which was, I don't know, third. But I've been at Pixar now for 23 years, and this is my 7th Pixar feature film. And I worked on the first Incredibles, and it was one of my happiest experiences at Pixar. It was a really fun production. I think it was the combination of the passion that you just described Brad expressing, and it was this group effort to invent. So I guess to that extent, visual effects was a part of that. We were inventing how characters' hair moved and how their clothing moved. We were inventing water. We were inventing how hair in water is wet, and that was really hard to figure out, really hard. And it was very, it was a fun show. I mean, I think we really just had fun together. In spite of the challenges, we laughed a lot. So, it goes back for me to the storytelling. The effects are just a vehicle through which we are telling stories about people and life and families, and I think that's the thing that makes it interesting.